Have you ever seen a production that was any more thoroughly amateur than mine? If you have, well, I don't know whether to feel sorry for you or feel glad for you. Quite frankly, there is good. Please don't misunderstand what I'm about to say. There is good in professional production. It wouldn't hurt my feelings none if I could do a better job of lighting and camera and all that. But what I like in a whiskey channel or anything else is a real person speaking real English in a real way. I don't like showmen. I don't like scripted. I don't like a bunch of acting and fakery. And there are some whiskey channels out there where you look at them and you get the impression that these guys could just as easily be hard actors. You feed them the lines, you hand them the script and say, go to it. And I don't ever want to be anything like that. I just rinsed out my glass. I could use multiple glasses. I have enough for what I'm doing today. I'm doing 4 reviews in a row. Bang, 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 bang. But I've just been rinsing out the glass. And that is not the best way necessarily to do it. It works for me because at 11:49 in the morning, I'm not at my best tasting whiskey anyways. I have to work around my wife. She works around me. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment and we accommodate each other. She's off at a meeting of the Korean American Association, and so I'm using the time to whop out some videos. And so I'm not doing any. What I'm trying to say, and I'm like the guy who says good morning, but I digress. Well, I digressed. I'm not at my whiskey tasting best at this time of day. And so I'm not doing my best to be my best, if that makes any sense. Until this week, I had never had a single barrel whiskey. And through unusual, very unusual circumstances, I was able to afford 2. One was Balcones True Blue. I wound up with 3 firsts in one bottle. First single barrel, first cask strength barrel proof whiskey, and first store pick. And at the same time, I bought 4 Roses. The square bottle makes it hard to hold right for the camera. 4 Roses single barrel. And I like this bottle. It's a pretty bottle. There's some bottles out there I do not buy or not buy based on the bottle or on the label. Some people apparently do. I don't. I can't feature it. But if I wasn't going to buy a whiskey based just on the bottle, this just might be it. It's a pretty bottle. But this all comes out of one barrel. Everything in this whiskey comes from one barrel. It come from Warehouse MW. And it's barrel 60-2E. And I like the 4 Roses yellow label, although it's not really a yellow label anymore. They're basic bourbon, which has all 10 of their recipes. They have 2 mash bills and 5 strains of yeast, and they take those and they put them all together to make the basic 4 Roses. And I've had their small batch where they take, I think it's 4 of those recipes and put them together. And then this is one single recipe. It's not on the bottle, but all their single barrels are the same recipe. And so in a certain sense, this is more like a normal bourbon than it is like a 4 Roses, because they use those 10 recipes. And most bourbons you get, the basic expression and all the others is going to be the same mash bill, the same recipe. But anyway, I'm trying to knock videos out fairly quickly, so let me go ahead and pour just a splash of this. I'm not drinking, I'm reviewing, and so I'm not pouring near as much. The one thing I don't like about this bottle is this cork. I don't like these clunky tops. If I ever do wind up with a bottle of Blanton's, I'm going to hate the horsey. There's people collect them horses on the Blantons because you can get them to where each one has a different letter on it, and you can get them to where you can spell out Blantons with the horses. That doesn't appeal to me at all. I think those things are just kitsch. I think they're ugly. And yes, feel free to put in the comments if you see this and you think I'm a dingbat. Just put in the comments how stupid I am. I know that I'm by myself on disliking them horses. And who knows, if I ever had Blantons, I might like it so much I'd turned out like the horse after all. Meanwhile, Four Roses single barrel. That's the color of it. It's a good color for bourbon. Oh, I just got an alcohol spike in my right nostril. That's all my right nostril is good for, is alcohol. I don't know what it is about my nose. The only thing that's good for nosing is the left nostril, and sometimes that right one gets real sensitive to the alcohol burn. This is a nice light whiskey. Not light whiskey in the legal sense that the nose is light. That lightness reminds me of a Scotch or an Irish whiskey like a Bushmills or a Glenlivet. Not a peated Scotch. Nice and floral, maybe some honeysuckle in there. And I'm going to have to actually close off my right nostril. That's how bad it is all of a sudden. And that isn't working either because with just one nostril, I'm not smelling anything. And if you drink whiskey very long and you savor whiskey, nosing it and sipping it, you're going to find that sometimes things just go haywire and you can't get anything to work with it. You can't get anything out of the nose. You can't get anything on the tongue. And it can be frustrating because, you know, this bottle was $41.99, 42 bucks. And when you're spending real money, even on a $20 bottle of whiskey, you want to get something out of it. Okay, that's better. I'm getting some banana, maybe a hint of cinnamon, some candy in there, caramel or butterscotch, I'm not sure which, some vanilla. So it's pretty much a typical Kentucky bourbon, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, a hamburger is going to be a hamburger. It may be horrible or it may be great, but it's going to have hamburger characteristics wherever you go. There's something floral in there. Man, right off the bat, butter. And then cinnamon mixing in with the butter, and then black pepper mixing in with all that. And I'd have to look up their mash bill, but I don't believe, actually, if I remember correctly, do not quote me on this, but I think that when I looked up the mash bill for my written review, I found it's 35% rye. Don't hold me to it, but I think it's 35% rye. Rye is what they call a flavor grain. Bourbon has to be at least 51% corn. And then they add a flavor grain, whether wheat, rye, a bunch of barley. Usually they don't use barley for flavor, but it does have its own flavor. But whatever that flavor grain is, it adds flavor to the sweetness and the mildness of the corn. And rye is a spicy grain. If you drink rye whiskey, you'll note a lot of spice in it. And they tell me a lot of herbal characteristics too. But I've not had enough rye to speak on that with any authority. But this had some cinnamon and some black pepper, and that leads me to think my memory of maybe 35% rye is accurate. It's almost like spicy candy, if that makes any sense. I don't know that anybody has ever made a candy, a vanilla candy, uh, caramel, anything like that, that has spice in it. You don't think of candy and spice together, but that's kind of what this is like. It's like drinking a spicy candy. It's good bourbon. I'm not getting a whole lot out of it. It's 11:59 just now, and normally I drink my whiskey 12 hours later than this, about 12 at night or later. And I'm not at my whiskey tasting best right now. I have to work around my wife, as she works around me for things. We live in a one-bedroom apartment. We accommodate each other. That's how we've been together 44 years. I met her in March of 1979. I've never left. She's never left me. And our wedding anniversary, 44th wedding anniversary, will be in August. And the way we have stayed together so long is our commitment to what's good. I'm committed to what's good for her. She's committed to what's good for me. And so we work around each other. But that means I'm reviewing whiskey when I'm not at my best. And I apologize for that fact. Getting some corn on the nose now. And sometimes after a few sips, you go back to the nose, you'll get some more, because taste and smell have such a close connection. Yeah, definitely some musty corn. Not much else. I'm not going to spend the time it would take to really pick it apart. The finish is a blast of spice. Red pepper, black pepper. There's oak coming in now, and I love oak on a whiskey, especially in the finish. Then there's this sweetness, almost like you could take cool spring water and make it sweet without ruining the water. Not a bad whiskey at all. Now, it's a single barrel, which means if I was to get another bottle from a different barrel, I would get some different attributes. There is no such thing as getting two barrels of whiskey that are exactly alike. There are so many factors that can go into it. Which trees each barrel come from, where in the warehouse the barrel was, which warehouse it come from. The distilleries, a lot of times they'll find that one warehouse produces such spectacularly superior whiskey, everything they want to make into a special release goes into that one warehouse. So another bottle of Four Roses single barrel I might find to be better. This is good bourbon. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not at all saying it's bad. This is good bourbon. If this was the first bourbon I'd ever had, and by the way, what's the proof on this puppy dog? It is 100 proof, which when I was starting might have been a bit much. Right now, what I really like starts at 90 proof and goes up. I'm learning to love 100 proof and above whiskey. Although if it's crap whiskey, a zillion proof isn't going to improve it. But this is good whiskey. I like it. But with another bottle from a different barrel, I might like it more. That's the nature of single barrel whiskey. It's kind of hit or miss. But then this is not the typical whiskey I drink. It's not the typical whiskey I review, because the whole purpose of this channel is to help people who are beginning in whiskey, and you're probably not going to begin with a single barrel from anywhere. However, Four Roses single barrel. This particular bottle is good stuff. I recommend it to you if you're up to it. And if you're not up to it, it's not a reflection on you. It's simply that, like anything else, you begin as a newbie. Say you're going out for track. You're not going to be the team captain the first day. You're going to work up to it. You're going to earn it. You're going to become the best runner on the team over time. Same with pro football. Same with driving a stock car. Not everybody gets in a stock car and on the first day is going to win the Cup championship. So, well, shoot, I know where I was going. That's what happens when you are not scripted, and I have no script whatsoever. I'm a hick just up here talking. But, when you first get into whiskey, you're probably not going to be drinking single barrels. You're probably not going to be drinking high proof. You're probably not going to be drinking special releases of any sort, and you probably should not be anyways. I do not recommend starting with Beam White or Jack Black. They are barely drinkable by my judgment. I didn't think a whole ton of them when I was first starting. But you'll be starting with something basic and working up to the point of 100 proof single barrel whiskey. Nevertheless, it is good. And if you ever do come across it, I hope you enjoy it.